Stay tuned because for the next 60 minutes, Motorsports Unlimited is on the air. Hi, I'm Jerry Bryant, and these are the lovely ladies of motorsports. And all this hour, we're going to have 60 minutes of action-packed excitement. All kinds of exciting things will happen. And we got the famous Bill Wildt, and we got all kinds of other good stuff that's happening all this hour. Motorsports Unlimited, 60 minutes of non-stop action. So let's go to the studio right now, huh?
Thanks, Jerry, and hi, everybody. Welcome to the studio headquarters of Chicagoland's most watched, most talked about Access television series. I'm Samantha Bentley, and this is the 935th edition of Motorsports Unlimited. Today, we continue with Part 4 of Bill's motorcycle adventure in the summer of 2004. If you'll recall, he acquired a street bike for the first time in 15 years and set it up for touring. On August 1st, 2004, he left on a trip he'd been thinking about for 50 years. In Part 1, we visited with him at the Indiana state line, then at South Bend Speedway, and finally at the Ohio state line. In Part 2, we heard from him in Toledo, Ohio, then Bellevue, Ohio, and concluded at the Pennsylvania state line. In Part 3, it was reports from the New York state line and Buffalo, New York. Interesting enough, we still don't know exactly where we're going and why. Bill promises you'll find out on today's show. When he left Buffalo, New York, he proceeded east on Route 20. After raining all night the night before, it was hot and sunny when he left Buffalo. Several hours later, it started to rain again. Let's listen as Janine reads his report from high on a hilltop in upstate New York.
After 4 or 5 hours of riding, rain started to fall. When the thunder and lightning began, I decided the weather was serious enough to get into my rain suit and put the protective covers on the bags. While I was pulled off to the side of the road, along came an Amish carriage. I saw many in eastern Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. I quickly dug my camera out of the saddlebag and snapped a picture. I thought the contrast of the modern car splashing rapidly through the rain and the slow-moving carriage plodding along, the horse none too impressed with the fast-moving car, and my bike in the foreground interesting. If you look closely, you can see the small tripod I was using on top of the saddlebag on the right side of the bike. The picture opportunity came so quickly, I had no time to set it up.
I can't believe Bill's riding that bike all the way to New York, by himself. Hi, I'm Patty Borowitz, wondering what's driving him. Let's join him as he arrives at his destination.
Success. This is our destination, Carlisle, New York. I am standing here in the rain. It let up for a few minutes. I thought I'd give it a chance, but it's starting to rain harder again now. I just want to show you, we got here. I'm not going to do the math right now. It looks like a little over 900 miles. It felt great. It's an odd day today. Woke up, it was thundering and raining. Then all day long, unbelievably hot, so hot that I had to go and get a long sleeve white shirt from the local Walmart because my arms were sunburned from yesterday, even though I had the number 45 sunblocker all over them. Was really surprised. I still got burned quite good, and it didn't really like it. The arms didn't like it when I got into the hot sun again, so I went and got the white shirt. That helped. It has been just unbelievably beautiful all day. About an hour ago, here comes the thunder and the rain. I don't know if you can hear it in the background. That's the thunder, and it's raining again now. Stopped for a little bit, made me tempted to set up, but I've got to tear down again now. But we're here!
Okay, Bill, we're here, in Carlisle, New York. But why? What's there? Let's listen as Janine reads from Bill's daily trip journal.
Success! I reached my destination. 900 miles in 3 days to find this small town in upstate New York. I spent my boyhood days here and haven't been back in 50 years. It was raining and getting dark, but I made it. My parents built a restaurant, motel, and cabins called the Whitestone on this stretch of Route 20 in the late 40s and early 50s. I lived there from the time I was 5 until I was 12 when we moved to Chicago in 1955. It's been my desire to go back for a visit for at least 30 years. I wanted to see if anything they built was still there. 2 years ago, when I was lying in the hospital recovering from heart surgery and not knowing if I was going to make it or not, I scolded myself for never making the trip. Of course, summer is a terrible time for me to leave, as it is when our television production schedule is heaviest. But if I was going to do it, it had to be in the summer because of the things I wanted to see again. I finally reasoned, if I've got time for a heart attack, I've got time for this. Surprisingly, my 50-year-old memories of the Whitestone are quite clear. I still have one of their business cards printed in 1949. I saved some old family pictures of the place. This picture shows the restaurant and its relationship to Route 20. It was taken in 1952. Please note the Whitestones bordering the driveway, going from the restaurant to the motel, and cabins in the back. This picture shows the 2-unit motel and its relationship to the restaurant. It was constructed out of Klee blocks. These were building blocks designed and patented by my uncle, Gunther Kleberg. They boasted outstanding structural strength and superior insulation value along with on-site creation. My parents had a cement mixer and the molds. I remember them pouring the cement into the molds and letting them dry in the sun. This picture shows a couple of the 9 cabins. These are single cabins, but there were a couple of doubles too. When I was done taking pictures and taping in front of the Carlisle sign, I decided to see if I could locate the Whitestone, even though it was raining and dark. I wondered if anything would be left. I proceeded east on Route 20, going very slowly through this stretch of highway that is Carlisle. The first thing I spotted that I recognized was the one-room schoolhouse in which I attended kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grades. I couldn't believe it. After 50 years, the building was still there and in remarkably good shape from what I could see. Then perhaps 1,000 yards farther, but this time on the left, the building that was the town's only store 50 years ago. It was a general store and post office. It was the same building, though I only saw a post office sign. I was kind of excited now. I didn't quite know what to expect. I'd prepared myself for the probability that nothing was left, or worse yet, perhaps the Whitestone had been leveled for a strip mall. I continued motoring slowly, trying to see through the dark and light rain. I spotted a couple of more buildings I kind of remembered, but no Whitestone. My heart started to sink. We'd heard that the cabins were sold off and moved some 30 years ago, but I was sort of thinking that the motel unit would survive. It was particularly well constructed, and I thought if anything had a chance of still being there, it was the motel. I was slowly realizing that I surely had gone too far by now. I turned around and started retracing my travel even more slowly. It was possible I'd missed it in the dark and rain. I thought I'd be able to at least locate the property. I remembered there was a small road that ended at Route 20 on the other side of the highway from the Whitestone. It was about 500 yards west of the Whitestone, as I recall, and I felt if I could find the road and get my bearings, I could locate the property. I was looking for the road, or anything I might recognize. Then I saw it. Could that be it? It's not white, but the building is the right shape and size, and it's on the same angle as I remember the Whitestone restaurant. I rolled to a stop and looked it over carefully. That is it. The cabins aren't there, nor is the motel unit, but the main building is there. I was sure of it. It wasn't white, and the doors and windows were different, but I was sure of it now. I wondered how to approach the people there. It looked like a private home now, and they were going to think I was crazy. I didn't have to spend much time thinking about it. Apparently, a lone motorcycle moving slowly up and down Route 20 is not a common occurrence. As I got off my bike and pulled off my helmet, the man of the house kind of met me halfway. This is going to sound a little crazy, I started, but I believe my parents built this place back in the late 40s and early 50s. No kidding, come on in, he offered, while turning to tell the lady of the house what was going on. As it turned out, they'd seen me going down Route 20 slowly, like I was looking for something, and were curious about me too. I explained why I was there and what I was doing. This turned out to be one of the best parts of an already terrific trip. These were two of the nicest people I've ever encountered, warm and gracious to this strange biker in the night. They were as interested in the history of their home as I was about what had happened to it. We talked for at least an hour. It seems they purchased the place some 7 or 8 years ago, after it had been abandoned for several years. The cabins weren't there when they bought it, but the motel unit was. Unfortunately, somewhere along the line, someone knocked a big opening in the front of it to use it as a garage or barn. What there was of the roof was bad, and the interior was beyond salvage. They thought about trying to save it, but in the end decided it was beyond repair. They were curious about the construction, because it was so difficult to break up. I told them about the Klee blocks. It was getting late, and I was disappointed to learn that there were no motels or hotels in Carlisle. I really wanted to stay in one if any had survived. The closest place to stay was in Cobleskill. I knew Cobleskill because it was a significantly larger town, and after 3rd grade in the one-room schoolhouse, they bused you to Cobleskill Central School for the upper grades. It was about 8 miles from Carlisle by way of twisting and turning back roads. David and Denise Palmatier and 4-year-old daughter Samantha, the new owners of the Whitestone, provided me with directions and an invitation to return the next day in the daylight so I could take pictures. The rain was very light now, and I felt it was the best time to leave for Cobleskill to spend the night. On the trip to Cobleskill, I should probably mention that the beautiful upstate New York hilly countryside can be very scary at night in the rain. It was so cool.
Quite a story. Bill made it to Cobleskill through the dark of night, the rain, and the no longer familiar back roads. Let's check with him after a night's sleep at the start of day 4.
Okay, I stayed at a chain last night. It's not something I really wanted to do, as a matter of fact, and you'll find out again, hopefully, as this show proceeds, exactly why. I really wanted to stay on one of the little mom-and-pop motels or hotels along Route 20. As it turns out, I really couldn't find any, but I will admit it was dark, raining, and we are in a little town right now 8 miles from Carlisle. This is called Cobleskill, and I know all about Cobleskill because my parents came here once a week to do their weekly shopping at the AMP. They had an AMP store here. This is a much larger town in Carlisle, and they would come once a week to do their grocery shopping for the week. In addition to that, I went to Cobleskill Central School, which we were school bused in from all of the surrounding areas. I was 8 miles around, and there were youngsters that were from further away than that. And the way it worked was I went kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in a one-room schoolhouse in Carlisle, which I passed last night, and it looks like it's still intact. I can't believe it. It's been almost 50 years since I've been here. It's not a school anymore, but the one-room schoolhouse is still there. I hope I get a chance to show it to you. In any event, after 3rd grade then, you had to be bused to Cobleskill Central School. So for 4th and 5th grade, I was at Cobleskill Central School. It was a very big deal. We went by bus all the time, and the school was huge. Well, again, hopefully I'm going to get a chance to show it to you. We're in Cobleskill right now. I arrived in Carlisle yesterday in the rain, but intact and very pleased. My first reactions, let me think. I am surprised that so much is still the same. It's sad to see much of it is really dilapidated and rundown condition, but again, we'll explain this as we go along. But I'm glad it all hasn't been bulldozed. There's still much there, and including my home, where I'm going back to visit, which was a restaurant and motel and had some cabins when my parents operated it back in the very early 50s. It's a matter, well, no, not yet. I got something I want to show you too, but not yet. Okay, we're going to get on with it now. This is day 4, I guess. Yeah, today would be day 4. Let's see, Sunday, Monday. Yeah, day 4. And we're just getting started here today. It was raining this morning, but it looks like it's going to be a beautiful day now. I'm happy to see. Just a couple of things real quick. This motorcycle. Oh. This is my baby. I love this thing. I will never get rid of this thing. This thing is awesome. I can't believe it. A 22-year-old motorcycle. It's been a trusty steed. It's fast. It's powerful. It carries me and all of this stuff without any difficulty. And I got about 52 miles to the gallon on that last tank full. So it's certainly been economical. All of this stuff, by the way, has just worked superbly. Very well thought out stuff. Doesn't make any difference if it's from Nelson Rig with the saddlebags before, or from Covercraft, I believe it is. Yes, Covercraft for the tank bags and the tail pack. This is, by the way, brilliant, and I know all the companies do it this way. I've just never experienced it before, having this clear plastic panel on top, and it's real easy, by the way. I don't know if you can hear that. It's just Velcro, so when you want to swap your maps around, you peel the Velcro off, change the maps around, stick it back down, then you never have to try to fumble and unfold maps and everything. Whenever you're getting gas or stopping to get something to eat, you can just take a look through here at your map, figure out where you're going to go, jump on and go. Really well thought out by people that apparently do a lot of touring, and those of us that haven't really are the beneficiaries of all of it. So that's it. We're in Cobleskill. I am just starting my visit home, and I hope you're going to enjoy this.
Before Bill rode back to Carlisle, he decided to check out the school in which he attended 4th and 5th grade.
Behind me is the Cobleskill Central School. Try saying that fast 3 times. Cobleskill Central School that I attended 4th and 5th grades at. It's a beautiful place, high up on the hill. It's a little hard to tell from this perspective. Hopefully I'll get a couple of still shots and put it in over this to give you an idea of just how high the hill is. I can remember one of my childhood memories here. For some reason, myself and a couple of buddies, we decided to start running down the hill. It got going so fast we couldn't stop. Our legs wouldn't keep up, and we tumbled head over tail all the way down the hill, head over tea kettle down the hill. And I was actually kind of hurt and didn't want to say anything because I was a tough guy, you know, but it really was a trip down the hill. It's interesting to me. The school is exactly the way it was when I left some 50 years ago. Although, if you go around to the other sides, there are additions that have been added and all that. But the area, I can't believe it, the area where I played dodgeball, and I considered myself the world's greatest dodgeball player because I figured out the game many years ago. If it's thrown at me, I can catch it. The way it works is if they throw the dodgeball at you and you catch it, then they're out. If they throw the dodgeball at you and it hits you, then you're out. Well, I just had the attitude, anything that comes close enough to me to hit me, I can catch, and the other guy is out. And I was very, very effective there, but I can't believe that grassy knoll, I guess you could call it, little grassy flat area outside of the school, that's still there. I was very pleased to find that. Anyhow, Cobleskill Central School, still out. Oh, interesting. I went in and talked to a lady named Liz Brown who had sent me a list of classmates and all that a couple weeks ago. Interesting. The nurse's office is in exactly the same place it was when I was there 50 years ago.
The nurse's office wasn't the only thing that was the same as 50 years ago. Bill couldn't resist going inside the school and into the auditorium to recall another memory that played an important part in his life. Janine?
2 more things before I finish up with Cobleskill. First, this is a picture of the Cobleskill Central School Auditorium. I know it's a little dark, but I've included it for a reason. As you know, I produce and host this cable television series called Motorsports Unlimited. It's what you're watching. Perhaps the most notable characteristic about the visual presentation is our showgirls. I'm often asked how, why, etc. The picture you're looking at is the answer. Bill explains. The Cobleskill Central School occasionally had theatrical productions in the auditorium, and students attended them during study time, as I recall. One time they had a magician. As most magicians do, he had a female assistant dressed in typical magician assistant garb, heels, nylons, leotards, and the obligatory tuxedo tails jacket. I attended Cobleskill School from about age 9 to 11. I don't remember what grade I was in, but I do remember the magician's assistant. It was more than 50 years ago, and I still remember it clearly. I was mesmerized. In a few minutes, I figured out what he was doing. He was using the pretty girl to distract. I remember saying to myself, I see how he does this. He has us looking at the girl while he performs his trick, so we won't see how it's done. I remember thinking about it for a few minutes, then saying to myself, now that I know what he's up to, I'll just force myself to ignore the girl and focus on him. In a few more moments, I realized I couldn't do it. I couldn't take my eyes off his assistant. I remember thinking how powerful the male attraction to the female was. I knew the trick. I knew how to defeat it. I wanted to defeat it, and I couldn't. I've never forgotten. Over the years, I have concluded that nothing on this planet attracts attention like a pretty girl. As a young adult, I came across something Plato said 4,000 years ago. Nature has given women so much power. It is wise that man has given them so little. I thought, heck, I learned that when I was 10 years old in Cobleskill. I'm sure this is probably not the lesson Cobleskill Central School would have necessarily chosen for me to carry through my life. So let me quickly add, I remember learning how to make a relief map there too.
Bill, Bill, Bill. What was the second thing you wanted us to know about before you left Cobleskill?
Second, I looked for buildings I remembered from 50 years ago on Main Street, Cobleskill. My parents went there every Saturday to do the week's grocery shopping. The Carlisle General Store was very small and carried a little bit of everything, but not a lot of anything. It was a little like Drucker's General Store, often seen in the old television series Green Acres, including the post office in the corner. I looked for the A&P my parents used to shop, but it wasn't there. I think the A&P chain disappeared decades ago. There was a card and candle shop in the approximate location, and the building looked like the right one, but I wasn't sure. The same movie theater was there, still in operation. For some reason, I didn't take a picture. Damn. What I did take a picture of was something that really blew me away. Decades ago, there was a chain of Five and Dime, as they were called then, named Newberry's. As I understood it, they were absorbed by Woolworths. I know, most haven't heard of them either. Then they were absorbed by Kresge's. Am I getting closer to your age group? And finally, they all disappeared as Kmart kind of replaced them, and I suppose we could now say Walmart is pushing them out. Anyway, my parents always took us to Newberry's every Christmas because they had a Santa. It was a big occasion in the Wildt household when it was time to take the kids to see Santa. I haven't heard the name Newberry in 50 years, so you can imagine my surprise when right there, where it always was, Newberry's. On closer examination, I found there was no Newberry, and in fact, they just left the Newberry name up and still call it the Newberry Building. It sure surprised me. Same red background and gold letters adorning the building after 50 years.
When Bill returned from his trip, he mentioned how surprised and pleased he was to find so many familiar things. It was time to ride back to Carlisle now, and Bill looked forward to seeing this lovely route in the light of day.
by school bus many hundreds of times when I was bused from Carlisle to Cobleskill Central School. It was for 4th and 5th grade, so 2 years. Yeah, that's a lot of days back and forth. There's a sign that says Carlisle to the left, and it's Governor's Corner Road. I guess that's what CORS means, instead of putting all corners in there. It's Governor Corns Road, I should say. I hope this shows up well on the helmet cam. It's so pretty.
The upstate New York countryside is beautiful and hilly. I'm not sure you can fully appreciate it on television. One is almost always climbing or descending. The hills are significantly steeper than they appear on television. On occasion, if you listen carefully, I actually have to downshift while climbing to keep from lugging the high RPM Suzuki engine. It's really quite a roller coaster ride. Not scary steep like Pikes Peak, but definitely, wow, this is steep.
And now I make a right turn. And this is, couldn't quite make it, a Hubschutz Road, I believe.
Pretty as these roads and this landscape is in the daylight, I can tell you, at night, in the rain, they can get your attention. Notice there are no streetlights, and I had to stop and hold the Palmatier map in front of my headlight at every intersection so I didn't get lost. I had to do this quickly though, because the rain was dissolving the map. The trip from Cobleskill to Carlisle and Carlisle to Cobleskill was such a delight that I made the run several times.
And now I believe I have a left coming up here. Cromie Road, I believe. Yes, it is, Cromie Road.
course, you can't really get the feel for this sitting at home watching it on television. When you're on a motorcycle, you're part of the environment, not insulated from it. When you go past a farm, you smell the hay instantly. It's difficult to put into words, but riders know what I'm talking about.
This shows how pretty this is on camera. This is a very steep downhill right now. Sometimes television doesn't give you those kind of angles, but I will tell you, it'll take your breath away a little bit. And one thing is for sure, when you're traveling in New York State, if they've got a sign that gives you a warning of a steep hill, take the warning seriously. That means throttle back, and if you got a manual transmission, downshift one. We should go right by my old schoolhouse. There it is off on the left.
What a quaint looking school. Let's take a closer look.
Well, I must admit, I'm absolutely shocked and pleased that this building is still here, although it's pretty obvious that it's not a school anymore. This is the one-room schoolhouse that I went to kindergarten, first, second, and third grade in. And the way it worked was in the middle of this one-room schoolhouse, there was a big potbelly stove, and around in each corner of the what amounted to one big room, there was a large round table in each of the four corners, and one was kindergarten, one was first grade, one was second grade, one was third grade, and then the teacher would spend a little time with the kindergartners, get them going on something, then move to the next table and spend time with the first graders and get them going on something, and so on and so forth with third and fourth graders. I have many happy memories of this place. It's in one way it's kind of sad because it doesn't look like it's really been kept up or anything. On the other hand, I'm absolutely delighted that it's still here. Kind of looks like some kind of maybe antique store or something, but there's no one around to really ask. I can tell you this though, this hill, and I guess I'm going to have to get some, I don't know if the audience can see it, I'll have to get some still shots if I can. We used to take our sleds in the wintertime. We always kept sleids here. We would take them up to that back row of grass there, start there, and shoot all the way down this hill. And I know that the teacher used to go crazy telling us not to go close to the street, because that's Route 20 right there, literally 100 feet away. But we just had a great time with our sleds here. I'm really pleased to see that the building still exists.
Bill was so pleased to find so many things he remembered. Of course, most important to him was the white stone. Let's ride a bit east on Route 20 and take a look.
As we turn to head east on Route 20, I call your attention to the left side of the road. It used to be Carlisle's only store and post office. It's not a store anymore, but it's still a post office in the same building. I walked from the Whitestone to the schoolhouse and the store many times. It was a wonderful childhood, and I'm grateful for it.
So now we're here, the place Bill rode 900 miles to see. Let's join him across the street.
Here we are. Really, here we are. This is the reason that I came 900 miles on a motorcycle. And what I'm talking about is the object in your upper left-hand corner of the picture. It's a brown building now. It's got brown siding on it. This was my parents' Whitestone restaurant. When my parents had it, this was the restaurant portion of it. They also had a 2-unit motel unit behind it that was taken down 2 or 3 years ago, apparently, or 3 or 4 years ago. And there were also 9 cabins. And we knew the 9 cabins had been sold off a long time ago, maybe 30 years ago. Somebody bought those and moved them off the property. I am pleased to see that there is something left of the Whitestone. Remember, my parents built this with their bare hands, and had a cement mixer and poured the blocks and let them dry in the sun and literally everything. There is no city water out here. Of course, we're way out in the country, so they had to have a well drilled, and I kind of remember each step of the way. And I'm pleased to say that not only is it not all of it gone, although obviously a good portion is, it's not all gone though, is the people that have it really have done a nice job in turning it over into a house and continuing to work on it. So it's kind of like they're breathing new life into it, and it makes me feel good. I'm not sure why, but it does make me feel good that it isn't being allowed to deteriorate and fall down. So this is it. On the screen right now, you're looking at a picture of my parents' business card printed in 1949. That's the reason we're here. I wish you would look closely at the address. That will give you an idea of why we wanted to use Route 20. Route 20 was at one time the main road going from New York to the west, or if you were coming from the west, from Chicago and points west of there, you would take Route 20 going back to New York. It was the main drag, very much like Route 66. If you're going from Chicago to California or California to Chicago, you would take Route 66. Well, Route 20 is the equivalent of Route 66. The difference being, of course, is that Route 66 had the courage to make it no stoplights, no stop signs all the way from Chicago to California, and that became kind of the first freeway. But putting that aside, Route 20 is the counterpart to Route 66. And by the way, I can tell you that it is a wonderful road to travel. It's still very scenic. As a matter of fact, I remember what happened really was my parents started building this place in the late 40s, and they built it by themselves, and they rented a house just up the street, and that's where we lived for a couple of years while they were building it. And my father's grandfather and grandmother came from Germany for a couple of years and helped them build it. And the idea was that they always wanted to have a restaurant or motel on the highway, and they were doing very well. In the early 50s, things were going very well. My father worked at the General Electric in Schenectady, that's about 50 miles from here, and commuted back and forth to work, and my mother took care of the place during the day. It was getting to the point where it looked like my father could quit his job at the General Electric and stay full-time on the business because things were going that well. However, there were rumors going about at the time of something called an interstate highway system and something called the New York State Thruway. Now, they were aware it was being built, and it actually parallels Route 20, except about 10 miles north of it. They were aware it was going, but they really didn't know exactly what it was. They'd only heard rumors and how it was going to affect them. So my dad, instead of quitting, said, we better wait and find out what that's all about. Well, sure enough, the year after the interstate highway system opened and the New York State Thruway, this road was deader than a doornail, and all of these businesses along here, and there are many of them. I took some pictures, and hopefully you're looking at those now. The Sudol's Garage. This was a place that did auto repair work and had gas pumps, and I see now there's really nothing going on here. In fact, I'm standing right in their parking lot now. It was kitty corner across the street from my parents' place, and their sons were Tony Sudol and Paul Sudol and Stanley Sudol, and the youngest one, Stanley, was my age. All of these places that I'm showing you pictures of. There's another one called the Plague's Place. place, Hugo Plagg. They were good friends of my parents. These were all friendly competitors. And at night, sometimes 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, my parents would get in the car and they would go up and down the highway to see who had how many cars in their motels and all that. And they often cross the other person, also checking to see who had how many cars and how many customers and all that. But this was a very bustling tourist area because of Route 20. Route 20 was very, very important to the economy. And I'm kind of, in a way, I'm very glad that what I found, that there's so much of it exactly the same as when we left. Obviously deteriorated and all that, but the buildings are still here. On the other hand, it's kind of sad in a way that all of this kind of like was locked in a time warp, because when the business went away from Route 20, it killed all of these business. And I remember these as sparkling, hustling, bustling places with families living there and customers coming in and out and all that. And we look now and we see very, very little activity. So I'm glad that the stuff is still here on the one hand, and the other hand, it's kind of sad in a way. Anyhow, I'm going to look around a little bit more and hopefully show you a little bit more of why I traveled 900 miles on a motorcycle. By the way, real quick, a couple things I haven't mentioned. With the rain we had, I was concerned about the saddlebags, and that this is one of the reasons why I like the idea of the hard bags with the fiberglass things now, because they were weatherproof and everything. Interestingly enough, this works extremely well. I was afraid that water would get in these things, but somehow this is made out of some kind of material where the water just beads up on top of it. Pretty cool. And there are included some inner liners, like plastic bags, but it's more than that. It's pretty elaborate, actually, with Velcro and clips and all that. It's pretty elaborate lining bags that line the insides of these things to make sure it stays absolutely watertight. I didn't really find it necessary. It seems to me these things keep the water out very, very well. Very impressed with that. I mentioned before about the motorcycle and how impressed I am with it, and getting more than 50 miles to the gallon and driving 65 and 70 miles an hour all the way here for 900 miles. Pretty cool. What else can I report on here? Well, as it occurs to me, you know what I should mention one of these days here? We are shooting this entire program on a Sony TRV 900 camera. This is one of the small mini cams, or handy cams I should say, and I am so impressed with the results. Now granted, it is not the usual quality that you get on Motorsports Unlimited. We understand that there are some sacrifices, but the fact that you can actually do broadcast quality pictures from a tiny little handful of camera. If it weren't for that technology, we couldn't do this kind of a program. I couldn't carry this stuff with me and all that. Remember, I'm taking everything with me on a motorcycle, including the television equipment, to shoot these pieces. Hopefully they're coming out pretty nice, but I also hope you understand, obviously it's not going to be the same as if we had our big stuff with me.
I know Bill is worried about the quality of the pictures, but I think they look fine. And a show like this wouldn't be possible without the new digital technology. Now, let's cross the street and meet the most important players in this entire adventure, the Palmatiers.
I am with the people that really have kind of brightened up the whole thing for me this visit back home again. I expected to find everything dilapidated and torn down, if anything, still there. And as it turns out, the main building that I was raised in from the time I was 5 years old till the time I was 12 years old is still here. Now, it's no longer a restaurant. As a matter of fact, they've been pumping me for information as to what it looked like and all that. First of all, let's meet them, and you are?
David Palmatier.
And?
Denise Palmatier.
Denise, you've got a daughter?
Yes.
Okay.
Samantha,
and she's how old?
4.
So she's almost the same age I was when I moved into this area, and I can tell you this, if she has as good of a childhood as I had, she'll be a lucky girl.
Oh, she loves it here. She doesn't want to go. She doesn't want to move anywhere. We say, you want to go someplace? No.
No thoughts about reopening it as a restaurant or motel or anything?
No, I like living in it, actually. I enjoy it.
Okay, it's true. The place was originally laid out, just the angle of the building and everything, and it had a parking lot in front of it, and it was laid out for the busy traffic off of Route 20 could swing in very easily, actually, because it's not a divided highway here, but it's divided in a lot of areas, and the people coming this way would be the most likely ones to pull in, so they arranged it so that people could pull right in here and all that. The buildings that used to be in the back, now there used to be a 2-unit concrete building back there that these folks tore down, and then there were actually 9. Pardon?
I didn't want to.
And it wasn't easy, was it?
No.
But well, here's what happened. My parents. 1955, and I've already explained that the thing that really killed all these businesses along Route 20 was the interstate highway system and the New York State Thruway, which was part of the interstate highway system. And these were all bustling little businesses here. It was really wonderful. There were many, many restaurants and motels and cabin systems up and down Route 20, and they were all friendly competitors. At usually 8, 9 o'clock at night, my parents would jump in their car and they'd run up and down the highway to see who had how many, and they'd see the other people in their cars going to see how many that we had and all that. But it was really kind of it was kind of friendly competition. I think I mentioned the Plagues before. Their place down there, and I see the entire motel is gone now. In fact, there's also, like here, people just living there now.
Yes.
Okay, and this was it your intention when you bought here to use it as just a private residence, or did you have business ideas in mind?
No, just to live, just to change it over and live in it. And
Well, let me tell you, this poor guy has gone through a war because we left 50 years ago, 1955, 50 years ago, and we came back once for just a couple of days in 1957 because the person that bought it in 55 couldn't keep the payments up. He tried to make a go of it as a motel and cabins, but there was just no business. The business was gone. It was gone to the interstate. So my dad came back here, brought us with just take care of some business details of transferring it over to somebody else. And over the years, people tried to make it go over as a business. It just wasn't possible. And then it lay dormant for a long time. And you guys say you had 4 feet of water in the basement.
Oh, yeah.
All the roofs were caving in.
It was 6 years before anybody lived in it before we bought it.
6 years it sat empty.
Yeah. And then it was 2 years empty as we traveled all the garbage out and into dumpsters as we went along.
You guys have worked. The reason I say I'm pleased here is because I didn't know what I expected when I came out there. I didn't know if I was going to come out here and these buildings would all be collapsed, or if, on the other hand, there would be some kind of new growth or something. And I must tell you, this pleases me. At least a piece of what my parents built is still here. And remember, my parents built this with their bare hands. Honey, do you know what I'm talking about? Come here. Tell me who you are. Come on over here. What's your name?
Sammy.
What is it?
Sammy.
Look up there and tell them.
say Sammy Palmetier.
You see what you're looking at?
Can you see the camera?
Yeah.
It's a camera.
And you see me.
Yeah, they can see you. But I don't know, where was I? We were talking about, lost my train of thought now.
Me too.
It's okay, it happens to me all the time.
Transition of the buildings, I think, you know.
Well, in any event though, you guys what pleases me is that you guys have breathed life into this thing. You've done a beautiful job, and what this folks behind us, this part of the building over here on this side was all the restaurant portion of it. If you see the little window on the side of the house down there, that's the kitchen, correct?
Yes.
That's the kitchen. That's where my mom used to cook the food for the restaurant or diner, whatever you want to call it.
Kitchen.
It is still the kitchen now, and on the other side is an attachment on here that was our bedrooms because my parents rented a home about a mile down the road, and for a long period of time they walked back and forth here to build this place, and finally when they put the addition on, they moved the whole family down here. In any event, it really is gratifying. My parents put 10 years into building this place, and when I say with their bare hands, I mean they had the cement mixer and poured the concrete blocks and let them dry in the sun and all that. So there was a ton of work that went into this, and I like this better, that it seems to be coming alive again, and at least a piece of it exists, and I want to thank you folks.
Thank you for stopping by, because it gave us a lot more information that nobody had.
And I promise you, I will email you some pictures of how the place used to look, because you've been curious.
I'd love to see it.
Love to.
Folks, so you see, the story does have kind of a happy ending.
Bill is so lucky that people like the Palmetiers now occupy his old homestead. He told us when he returned, the Palmetiers breathed more than new life into the place. They breathed in happy life. Little Sammy is a delight to watch. The Palmetiers breed champion Dobermans, and little Samantha often pulls them around in her wagon. Truly a Norman Rockwell moment. Now, Bill mentioned earlier that it was important to do this trip in the summer because of some of what he wanted to see. Listen to what he wrote about in his journal.
Bill writes, I think I mentioned earlier that one of the things I thought about while I was lying in the hospital recovering from my heart surgery 2 years ago was never having made the trip back to New York to visit my boyhood home. Prominent among those memories was a place about a half hour away from the Whitestone called the Gorge, or at least that's what my parents called it, though I remembered that wasn't its official name. It was just the way my parents and their friends referred to it. As I recall, it took about 30 minutes to get there, and my parents would take us 2 or 3 times a summer. It was very hard for them to get away from the business during the summer months. Somehow they managed to do it. Looking back, I don't see how they pulled it off. Oh yes, the gorge. It was a natural thing of beauty, a picnic grounds, and an incredible place to swim. I had little interest in the picnic area, but the gorge itself was special. Let's see if I could describe it. There was a small river, quite small by river standards, that ran through an area of the countryside rich in shale deposits. Shale is kind of a stone or slate, much like the blackboards we used to have in school, before computer screens. Anyway, over the centuries, the river cut a large gorge through the shale, forming a picturesque area, featuring high walls of shale on each side. The bed of the river and the walkways alongside of it were all slate. Walking in the river was like walking in a man-made pool. The floor was flat, smooth slate. Of course, nature is more random than that. Over the centuries, irregularities formed when some slate or shale would wear more quickly. This formed pools and small waterfalls. Some of the waterfalls were small, only a foot or so, and one in particular at the end of the gorge was quite high. I never saw the high one, rumored to be in excess of 25 feet, because our parents wouldn't allow us kids to go down there. It was reported to be dangerous, and it was rumored someone died there. In the area we frequented, it was beautiful. There was a 1-foot-high waterfall that small children played in, and a 3-footer adults sat under on a convenient ledge. The 3-footer had formed a pool about 4 feet deep and plenty large enough in which to swim. The water was always warm and clear, something like you would see in a beer commercial. Disney couldn't have done it better. I really wanted to visit the gorge, but I couldn't remember its real name, exactly where it was, or how to get there. When I got out of the hospital, I checked the internet to see if there was anything about Carlisle, New York. Strangely, the only listing was an automatic transmission repair shop. I thought it was odd considering how small Carlisle was, still do. But I took a chance and called. I talked to a man named Richard Buffo, nice fellow. I explained my plight and 50-year-old roots in Carlisle. He laughed and said, "You must be a local. We're the only ones that call it the Gorge. Its real name is Wintergreen Park. It was closed for a few years, but the state came in and fixed it up about 10 years ago. It's in Canajoharie, New York, and if you ever get out this way, stop in and I'll be glad to explain how to get there." I thanked him and said, I might just do that. On August 5th, 2004, some 2 years and a few months after that discussion, I walked into his shop on Route 20 and said, "Hi, I'm here for those instructions on how to get to the gorge that you promised." To say he was taken aback would be about right. I explained and then saw a note of recollection in his eyes. "I do remember that call," he said. "You actually made it out here, and on a bike." "I'll be glad to give you directions," he offered. He was warm and friendly, like everyone else I encountered on the trip. He provided detailed directions, and I was on my way, pleased with myself for the way I did it. Of course I should have taken a picture. I didn't. But I was eager to get to the gorge.
Wintergreen Park, or the Gorge, as Bill and the locals call it, sounds like a beautiful place. Let's enjoy a little of the upstate New York countryside between Carlisle and Canajoharie as we ride on the back of Bill's bike. Hold on!
I had to quickly slow down for Mother Goose and her goslings. Sure wouldn't want to hurt an animal. It's a pleasure to share the countryside with them. I am looking forward to showing you the gorge. It's a very special place, and I think unique. But touring on a motorcycle isn't just about getting somewhere. It's also about the ride. Enjoy.
Unfortunately, as always, we're out of time too soon. We'll have to save the gorge for next week because we only have enough time left to acknowledge the fine work of our award-winning production team, including Chuck Itzenthaler, Sue Cassanda, our webmaster Frank Barbalace, Rena Borwitz, and Tom McGrady. Special thanks to JBTV's Jerry Bryant. Music is created for us by independent artists Roger Pauley and Jerry Herbert. Of course, we have to take a moment to thank the stars of this edition of Motorsports Unlimited. Patty Borwitz, Janine Lauschat, and our host, Bill Wildt. Me, I'm Samantha Bentley, thoroughly enjoying Bill's motorcycle adventure and hoping you are too. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
This program made possible in part by support from Jimmy's Red Hots, located on Grant Avenue and Pulaski Road in Chicago.
This program made possible in part by support from ABC Auto Parts, located on Ashland Avenue at 138th Street in Blue Island, Illinois.
This program made possible in part by support from Copy That, located in the County Farm Plaza at County Farm Road and Army Trail Road in Carroll Stream, Illinois.
Motorsports Unlimited is produced by Bill Wildt, president of the Motorsport Advancement Crusade.
This program made possible in part by support from Bridgestone Firestone and your local Bridgestone Firestone tire retailers.
This program made possible in part by support from PB Food Products, located on 47th Street at Western Avenue in Chicago, Illinois.
This program made possible in part by support from J.C. Whitney & Company, located just off I-80 at the Utica exit in LaSalle, Illinois.
This program made possible in part by support from the Chicagoland Toys for Tots Motorcycle Parade, held on Western Avenue in Chicago, the first Sunday in December. Motorsports Unlimited was created to raise public consciousness, understanding, and appreciation of the motorsport community and their activities. You can contact us by email at msutv.com, or you can write to Motorsport, P.O. Box 66242, Chicago, Illinois, 60666. We enjoy hearing from our audience. Please let us know what you think.
Oh yeah, it's steep. Hope I'm supposed to be on here. No, I guess I see a couple of cars down there through the trees, so I guess it's okay. Boy, this must have been a job cutting this road through here. We used to just scoot down that, what you see on the right over there.
So that's it, another edition of Motorsports Unlimited and the lovely ladies of motorsports. And be with us next week because we'll have something real exciting. Bill Wildt's going to have the lovely ladies, and just about anything can happen right here on Motorsports Unlimited. Every week at this time, we bring you the best in motorsports. So be seeing ya. Bye-bye. And keep on rocking.